Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Empower Your Data, diving into Oracle Analytics Cloud for Developers. My name is Nikki Chen. I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today, we're excited to show you how OAC can transform your raw data into actionable insights and unleashing the full potential of your data. If you have any questions during the webinar, please drop them in the Q&A and we'll be ready to answer them. We've also set up a Slack channel, Cloud Coaching North America, in our developer workspace that you can access at the QR code or at the link on the screen. This channel will remain open after the event for you to contact us directly whenever you have any questions. Today's webinar will be presented by Sunil Jain, Cloud Engineer. Without further ado, I'll pass it to Sunil.
My name is Sunil Jain, and today I'm going to be going over the Empower Your Data webinar. As an agenda for the things we're going to do today, first, we're going to take a brief look at some slides, detail what the demo is going to be. In that, we're going to do an overview of Oracle Analytics Cloud, just talk about what OAC is, etc. Next, we're going to go over creating data connections to Oracle Analytics Cloud. That's going to be very simply just talking about how data connectors work on Oracle, grabbing a data set from a database on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and taking that data over to OAC. Next, we're going to talk about machine learning for augmented analytics on OAC. We're also going to take a brief review of some data formats on OAC. And then lastly, we will go and actually do everything that we've just talked about on OAC. So we'll grab the data, we'll do some data processing, we'll make sure that our data is ready for analytics. We will then actually make the analytics. So without further ado, let's get started. So first, an intro slide. What is Oracle Analytics Cloud? So Oracle Analytics Cloud, as the name would imply, is a cloud-native service providing capabilities for the entire analytics process. So this is going to go from data ingestion, data processing, data preparation and enrichment. And then after you've gotten your data ready, you're going to be able to create visualizations, dashboards, and collaborate with that data. One of the big goals with having all of the analytics process in one tool is that you'll be able to get a single hub for all of your data. With this, you can take data from different lines of businesses, different formats, and etc., amalgamate it in one place, take that data, perform any operations you need on it to prepare for processing, take suggestions based on machine learning from the tool itself to streamline this process, and then create your analytics. And Oracle Analytics Cloud, just like the rest of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, is going to be secured through IAM, or Identity Access Management. This is going to keep your data with the same sort of security policies and principles that you would use in OCI. So for those who are familiar with OCI, the security principles here are going to be the exact same. Next, we can talk about data connectors. For data connectors on OAC, we have really large number of data connectors. These are going to range from things that are Oracle databases to open source tools that you'll be able to use. There is going to be support for things like MongoDB, Postgres, other cloud providers, things on Azure, things on AWS, and obviously all databases Oracle. Another thing with Oracle Analytics Cloud on the data pre-preparation side is Oracle is going to be able to source data from a data source directly into OAC through a dynamic flow where it will go from a database to a report all through this flow. Next, machine learning on Oracle Analytics Cloud. So this is a big part of what makes Oracle Analytics Cloud a very convenient tool to use. When you are going into OAC and you load data in, the first thing you're going to see is a data screen. And what that's going to lead to is a number of recommendations. So for instance, if you've got different formats, the machine learning on OAC is going to give you smart suggestions on what sort of formats you're going to have. So what's going to happen is you'll take different pieces of your data, you'll get recommendations for how to process it. Maybe if you have country codes, you have phone numbers, and you want to break up those variables, or you have dates and you want to group data into quarters. These are things that the machine learning algorithms are going to pick up on and offer you to do. And every time you're going to click one of these suggestions, it's going to be stored in the ledger. And what will happen is you'll have a record of all of the different changes that are made to your data. So if you ever need to reverse engineer something or figure out how something was created, you'll have a very clean roadmap of how to do that. So the next thing we have on the machine learning is natural language processing. So in OML and in the Oracle machine learning suite of products in general, we have lots and lots of different features based on natural language. And Oracle Analytics Cloud is no exception. So with Oracle Analytics Day by Day, which is the mobile interface for Oracle Analytics Cloud, what's going to happen is this is a way for you to view different visualizations, different dashboards from a mobile app. And what's going to be done is you'll be able to take different visualizations, and it's going to have a homepage where, based on different events that it sees being put in, based on what everyone else is clicking in the user ecosystem, it's going to prioritize certain visualizations. So it's got, an algorithm similar to what you would see on many other video sharing or video hosting websites to prioritize showing you things that are most likely to be useful. And so last couple of things before we hop into our demo was to talk about a little bit on data preparation with data types. So in OAC, which we'll take a look at very shortly, we will see that there's generally two different data types that are the highest level of classification. For those, we have measures and attributes. So in SQL, you'll have a handful of different data types, and those are still going to exist on OAC, but there's also variable types, which you can think of as a binary way to say if something is categorical or a quantitative data measurement. Okay, so with that, let me quickly switch my share and we can get into a demo going through in the console everything that we've just talked about today. So here I am in my cloud tenancy, and first order of business is going to be going into our database to take a quick look at our data. So for today, we're going to be using an autonomous database, and we're going to be using the data warehouse workload type. Something that you'll notice is this says always free. On Oracle, you can provision a single OCPU autonomous database for free. So if later on, if anyone already has OAC and they want to try and recreate anything here, you can do so with the always free database to avoid any cost. So here we have our database, and what we're going to want to do is create a database connection to OAC. So in this little tab right here, this is where you'll be able to get your database connection string and your database wallet. I'm not going to click this to avoid exposing what my wallet credentials are, but this is where that data would be stored. Here we see we've got Performance Hub, handful of other metrics around our database, etc. So before we hop into OAC, I'm going to quickly go to Database Actions. And we'll see here there is a SQL interface. So I'm going to grab my tables. Throughout today, we're going to be working with 4 tables. First one we're going to be working with is coffee. The coffee table, we'll see here, has these number of variables. And then we see dept short for department, em short for employee, and location. These are the next set of data we're going to use. So we'll see here, this is just SQL Developer. This works exactly as you would expect anything in SQL would be. We'll run a quick query. Just select our data from coffee. And that's going to give us a brief overview of our data. And now we will go into OAC and see if we can get this data over there. So if you just type in analytics, Analytics Club will be pulled up under services. I have Analytics Club bookmarked on my page, so it shows at the front of my console. So now we'll click into our analytics instance, and we will click the URL, and this will take us to Oracle Analytics Cloud. And so we see we have, a bunch of arbitrary workbooks that have already been built, but today we're going to build them again from scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to data. We're going to create a data set. And here we see we have some connections. I'm going to click create connection, going to create a connection to the autonomous data warehouse. Give it a quick description. We will select our wallet. We'll put in the password to our user on the autonomous database. For the service, this is going to be in VC database low. We'll click save, and we have a connection created. And so we see here we have the manual query in SQL, and we have the schemas. So we're going to go look under admin, and we're going to see the 4 data sets that we were planning to use today: coffee, department, employee, and location. So here we see it's populating our data, and we have our data that has all been grabbed for us. So first thing we're going to do, and this is going back to the data types, we're going to make sure everything in our data set makes sense. So we see here we have transaction ID. Doesn't make a lot of sense to have an ID as a measure. We're going to use it as an attribute. So we have store ID. Let's also make this an attribute. Product ID, set that as an attribute. And so now we have our data where our categorical variables are going to be stored as categorical variables, and our quantitative variables are stored as quantitative. Now, that being said, these variables still have a variable type, or sorry, this data still has a data type. This is just us setting the variable type. So we're going to click save. Okay. And then we will see that the create workbook option has become ungraded. So we will create a workbook. And here we are. If we did want to go back to our data after creating it, we can go here, click on this pencil, and it'll allow us to fiddle with the data again. So now we have our workbook, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test out some of the machine learning features. So we're going to click on this light bulb, which is called Auto Insights. And what Auto Insights is going to do is it's going to give us some suggestions for visualizations we could make. And so first off, transaction quantity value. This is going to represent transaction quantity and how it distributes against members of product category. So what that's saying is it's going to tell us how much of each product our stores are selling. Sounds pretty useful. So we see we sell 23,000 baked goods, 776 branded goods, a lot of coffee, some coffee beans, some drinking chocolate, and some coffee flavors. Now that we have this chart, we see here, this is a bar graph. If we wanted to change the visualization, we can look at this dropdown and select from a handful of visualizations. And then we see we have the options for color, category, and y-axis. So if we wanted to add more bars, we can add more variables here in the numerical section. And we see here on the left side, it's got the little numerical flag just to let you know which sort of variables you should be using. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make a third variable. We'll add store ID as color. And now we'll see here that we get 3 little pieces for each one. So now we can see that store ID 3 has 7,496 baked goods sold, 8,040 for store ID 5, and 7,678 for store ID 6. And so now we've broken up our data a little bit more. And if I want to revert, then I can just click the X and it'll go to here. So further on the auto insights, this graph with category by, transaction quantity or amount sold is fairly simple. But the auto insights is a lot more sophisticated than that. So we'll see here, we're going to add this ratio transaction. And what this graph is going to be doing is it's going to be looking at the premium on price when we look at the transaction quantity divided by the unit price. So we're going to see when someone buys one of our products, basically how many of them they're buying. And so we see here that flavors are going to scale up the most. We also see in my calculations, the variable that this graph is saved is now populated in my calculations. And we'll go back to Auto Insights one last time, and we'll choose one last count of records. So this is going to be total, and we'll quickly grab this. And we see here that this is going to be using a row count, and it's got a nice little graphic right here. So if we want to see what Auto Insights did, we can go to these calculations, edit the calculation, and we see here how it found out what it was going to put into this table. Another thing we might want to see is that we want to put a filter in. So earlier I was putting in variables into the color category, but in this case we have category for boxes and then different colors for the product category. So if I wanted to add more dimensionality, how would I do that? The answer to that is we'd use a filter. So here I can click and drag, or I can find a variable for a filter. So for all of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a filter around store ID. And so we'll see here now, all of these are going to be querying from this filter bar. So I'm going to decide that I want to look at store ID 3. And we'll see all of the different visualizations are going to shift. And what's going to happen is it's going to display data from whichever of these variables I've selected. So we'll now notice that it's going to be the same values as what we saw in the original visualization. We now have the opportunity to select. So when you're creating your dashboards, you can create the ability to have many different views depending on what sort of filter that you want to use. So here we've got canvas 1 right here. We'll also make a second canvas real quick, and we will do a couple more visualizations. So this time, if you want to just have the template for the visualization first and not use auto insights, what you do is you come over here, select what you want. So this time we'll just make a standard table to kind of illustrate how calculations work and just the general flow for creating standard dashboard. So I'm going to right click on my calculations and click create calculations. So we're going to do a revenue total total price. And we're going to sum up the unit price. We're going to validate the calculation. It says it's good. We're going to save it. And then what we will do is we'll just simply drag out revenue into our little chart. And there's a lot of formatting options you can use depending on how you want your charts to look. But for time's sake and simplicity, we're just going to use a very basic chart, make the calculations, and see how it works with the tool. So next, we'll look at how many of each thing is being sold. So we'll make the count. So count of products. Totals of each category sold. So we're going to run a count of the transaction IDs, or sorry, the transaction quantities. And we're going to save that. And we're similarly going to drag it in, and we'll see it here. Let's quickly edit this. Calculation, transaction quantity, totals cost of each quantity. Sorry, let's make this a sum because transaction quantity is a numerical variable. Okay, we'll save it. And now we'll put in some filters. So we'll use store ID for one, and then we'll create a second filter based off of the product category. So now we'll see here we have our count of products sold, and we are going to see the revenue. So for now, let's say we want to see our coffee and we want to see coffee from store ID 3. And so now we have a multi-dimensional report that's going to be querying based off of our different pieces of data. And so if you had a different data set that was more complex than our, relatively simple example of 3 coffee shops in, 3 different locations in New York, you could make a lot more different variables, a lot more different calculations, and you could have, in general, just a much more fleshed out and complicated data set. And you would do it all in the same manner, where you create your calculations, you prepare your data, and then you simply put them into the visualizations. And then after you have them in visualizations, you'll create your filters to allow people to tweak those visualizations to more easily be able to see what's going on. So quickly save this workbook in case we need to come back to it later. And now we'll go on to the other workbook, which we're going to make, which is going to go around the other data sets. So we're now going to create our next data set. This data set, we're going to use the same connection. So last time we created Cloud Coaching connection. We're simply going to reuse it because we're using tables from the same exact place. So we're going to quickly go into schemas. We're going to select the admin user where the data was stored. And now we're going to go through the depth, emp, and location data sets. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the department. We see here we have 3 ID variables. None of these should be numerical. These are meant to be categorical measures. So we're going to quickly switch them over to categorical variables. We see here at the top, we have this little flag for auto joining tables. And kind of, as you can tell from some of the calculations screen and some of the operations we've done earlier, you can run a lot of SQL logic directly in this tool, and the tool will kind of help you do that. So now we're going to put in the employee data set. It's going to say that we can drag over a table to another one to create a join. Okay. And this is kind of leading to why we have to make sure we're using these attributes instead of just leaving them as numerical. Oracle Analytics Cloud will not let you join numerical data together. You have to join on categorical variables. So that's why we've made sure to create these categorical variables for all of our different data. So now we're going to take a quick sanity check, make sure, right? So everything seems to be categorized correctly. And now we're going to go to location and we'll see that the auto join has now joined the employee and department data sets for us. So we'll click on the little join and we see that employee and department have had an inner join based on variable department ID equals department ID. So if you want to fiddle with the join logic or add some conditions for your join, or simply change what kind of join, you don't have to fiddle with any of the code. You can just do it in the UI. So last, we're going to take location. We're going to make sure our data is correct. And we're going to drag location to department. And we see here that it's also been joined on location ID equals location ID with another inner join. And so next thing we're going to do, going to quickly look and see what this tells us. So we see here that in pre-processing, this is telling us that we have some variables which are invalid country values. If we wanted to click on the filter, it'll give us the automatic options to filter by valid values. So if we wanted to remove data that didn't have a country code, we could simply click that filter and it would make sure that all of the different values had valid country codes for them. Now we're going to remove that. We're just going to use the base data, but you can see here, there's going to be some smart suggestions and some filtering options for your different data sets. So now that we've worked with this, we'll simply save our data set. And this will allow us to create a workbook, which we will do. And so we'll quickly go into the data editing. And we'll see here, it's the same data that we've just joined together. So we'll go in and quickly open up different data pieces. And then what we'll do is we'll just quickly create some basic visualizations. So let's say we want something from, let's choose salary. We'll see here if we just create the best visualization, since we've only selected one variable, it's just going to create something very simple. But something else that's nifty is you can choose a couple of variables and you can see if it will create a visualization for you. And so now what we have here is we have a chart that OAC has automatically created for us based off of us highlighting multiple variables, us right-clicking, and then, clicking the create best visualization. And if we don't like the visualization, we can choose to tweak it. So right now we have the x-axis as manager ID, and we have color as location ID. So if we wanted to, we could switch that around, and we can see now that this location makes a little more sense. So we can see here now each of the different locations, and for each of the different locations, we can hover over and see the manager and see what the different salaries are. So we see here that we pulled some variables from different tables, which would largely mean that the join has worked. And similarly, if we want to create filters, let's say we want to just make a simple chart again, and we'll just drag salary and commission percentage, and we want to filter by something in location. So we want to see how we'd filter that by different country IDs. we can see here that it's working. This commission percentage were variable. And so we see here we've got US, we'll add Canada to the mix, and it's going to be populating this variable, and it's going to be dynamically changing it based on the joins we've made. So these are most of the features that we intended to look at in a very short period of time, just half an hour with no coding. What we've managed to do is we've taken our data without any cleaning from a database. We've transferred it over to Oracle Analytics Cloud using some of the enrichment features on OAC. We've taken our variables, processed them to make sure that they can be read and joined correctly. We've then created some visualizations based off of auto insights and a couple of visualizations based off of things that we've created individually. We've looked at how to create calculations, how to create basic dashboards using the chart feature, and then how to create filters on those dashboards to make sure that they're easily readable and can be tweaked based on whoever is viewing them. So some other questions and answers is something we had seen earlier. So for the last handful of minutes before I pass things over to Derek for a brief summary of the Code Innovate program are some Q&A questions. We have a couple minutes for that, so I'll take a look at some of the ones that are open right now. So one we have from Jules is, what apps can we export data visualization to? So there's a lot of different endpoints that you can use to embed Oracle Analytics into apps. You can use it through web applications. There's a lot of apps on OCI that you can push them to. You can take the apps and you can put them on HTML. There's integration with iframes and JavaScript embedding. Let's see. So those are a handful, and in the documentation, there's a very exhaustive list of some of the more niche examples of where you can export these sort of visualizations to. So another one is Durga. So we see what is the good starting point to get trained in OAC and any helpful resources. So one of the good parts about OAC is it's very low code. A lot of what we would do today would usually require you to write some SQL code, and depending on what language you're using, if you're using Python, maybe you're just going to run something in Matplotlib. If you're using R, you can use any of the numerous data visualization libraries. But ideally, you just have a use case in mind. And the best resources I usually use are the Oracle Developers YouTube channel, which has tons and tons and tons of tutorials. And every time a new feature is added, you'll see it in the monthly new features report, and it'll give them an example of them creating something around that new feature, and then the getting started with OAC documentation. So is there an option for filtering based on another report analysis? That's another great question. There actually is. So I didn't create visualizations that it would make a lot of sense to do that on in the department one. This was mostly meant to show how machine learning helps you with join. So employee. So we'll go back to this one, and we will see that It's in a new workbook now. 1 second. Don't save. All right. So we'll see here for this, what we can see is for these sort of graphics, we can click use as filter. And what that will do is it will allow you to filter other visualizations based off of whatever visualization you choose to use as a filter. So you can either have a single visualization be used as a filter, or you can have the filters be stored in the filter bar up at the top.
Thanks, everybody. So yeah, I'll just introduce the Code Innovate program. I work on the Code Innovate team along with Mark, who's also on this call. And a lot of the webinars we've been doing over the last year or so have been based on real use cases with real customers. We've done, I don't know, we're well over 300 now. The program's been running for 4 or 5 years. And sort of the genesis of it was really around creating solutions to use cases from our customers. And there's an analogy I think is really good. My boss, he has kids, they go to Legoland every year, and they work with this, with master builders, the guy in the green there in the upper right. They're given an assembly of objects, and the whole goal is to create something. In this case, it's penguins. So the analogy is this, is that you've got your use cases, you've got a number of services. You're not sure how to use them. You need some guidance. You want to ultimately build something that you're interested in, and you do that in a short 1 week time frame, and the result is some completed prototype solution to your use case. And so that's kind of the analogy. It's a 5-day online event to jumpstart cloud development. It's hands-on. It's all hands-on. You build it. We don't build it. You build it with our assistants. Our engineers work online with your team. We use Zoom. We use breakout rooms. It really facilitates rapid sharing. If you've never used the service before, by the end of the week, you'll have been working with us. You're driving. It's very effective at knowledge transfer. It uses your use case. It's not like a POC. It's not like a workshop. It's your data. It's your use case. And you do have some kind of prototype by the end of the week. It's free. We are in sales. Our motivation is to have you adopt the cloud. If you're coming from OBIE, get an introduction to the cloud side of things. If you've never used it, that's fine as well. So yeah, we are here to help our customers adopt, of course, OCI Cloud. And, we have some requirements. Bring your use case. It's not our workshops. It's your use case. We work with your engineers in 4-week time blocks. We found a whole day is kind of pretty tiring on Zoom. So they're half days, usually morning or afternoon, but you choose the time zone. We've accommodated offshore as well. Probably half our workshops, half our Code Innovates are involving offshore. So we do accommodate that. We just have to find time zones that work for everybody. And we build a first pass working prototype for your use case solution. So yeah, think about it. Reach out to us. We've got email us at the Code Innovate usgrp@oracle.com.
If you like today's session, we'd love to invite you back to check out our upcoming events. We'd also love to hear your feedback on what topic you'd like us to cover in the future. Have a good day and hope to see you soon in the future. Thank you.